Hi everyone, welcome to PasigoDesign Watercolor Studio. Today we're going to be painting some florals using complementary color scheme. The idea is basically to just select two colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. And by doing so, you restrict the amount of colors that you have on your painting and you create different effects, which are quite interesting. So just to show you before I get started on this one, I've already done this exercise using the violets and the yellows, and this is what I got. I also did it with reds and greens. These were bluish greens, quite bright reds, but fun to see the difference. And what I always do before I start is I plan the colors by testing what they look like first on the side. So I did that one as well. And I used also a print of an image that I had, which is this one. It came from one of my pictures in my library, but I did put it through the Playground app on my iPad and generated different ideas with the flower effect. But basically, this was my sketch. There's a couple that I generated. This one had the larger flower, so it's fun because you can create all kinds of different looks. So gave me just stimulate the imagination, give you some ideas, play around with it, and then print out the image in black and white because really that's more informative than color because like as you can see we can change the colors in any way that we want. So here's my black and white image and I can now take a look at this and analyze basically where the contrasts will be and the light areas will be, and it'll help to define maybe what colors I want to use. I might want to use some stronger colors like blues and greens and violets in here. And then here, the lighter colors maybe on the color wheel, the warmer colors also. But again, you can change that around in any way that you want. But this is the black and white value sketch. It's a sketch in a sense that I will be using for this painting. And so because I've already done two of the color schemes, I'm going to pick today a blue and an orange complementary color scheme. And so I've already picked out my colors. I have a Block's Quinacridone Magenta. I have a Daniel Smith Nickel Azo Yellow, and a Pthalog Blue green shade. So as always, I test the colors out first. I mix some grays. I mixed here the orange that I will get because the idea is to go with orange and some blue because again, they're opposite on the color wheel. Let's take a look at that here. Yeah, there we go. That's where it is. The orange, take a look at the red orange or orange, whichever, and then opposite is the blue. So that's the idea. And also, before I get started, I usually do a little sketch on the bottom of this, and I just try my techniques. And that's helpful because before you start into a painting, you almost need a little practice first. So what I've done here is I've just hand drawn a little couple of little petals, and I'm going to show you, for example, if I were to pick any color that I've mixed here. So I've got the red, the yellow, and the mix, the red and the yellow, and some blue. I'm just going to take some red because it'll be brighter, and I'm only going to be making some little applications of color and looking at how my brush feels, how the colors feel, how much water is in my paint. Is it enough? Is it more than I want? Do these little tests first. You'll get a better feel for what the colors will look like. Then let me try another brush this time. So this was a very soft brush, a Raphael. I'm going to take a synthetic brush now, and let's try it with the yellow. And again, I'm just using the bead method. I'm going down and I'm just continuing on, making sure that there's enough pigment here at the bottom to keep that little bead going as I get through that whole shape. Okay, and then that's great. You can leave a little bit of white in there. That doesn't matter. If you don't like it, you just cover it. If you want to practice leaving some whites, this is a good time to do it. Now I'm going to do the next one with the orange that I have. Now my orange, I didn't mix a lot of it, so I will definitely need more, and I definitely need more on my brush. So in order to get a little bit more fluidity here, I can just use my pipette, add more water. This is going to be very, very light, but I want to show you, I have two shapes here that overlap each other. If the whole flower is going to be a certain color, then you don't have to do petal by petal. You can take the bead and carry it down even farther. So right here, I have a flower that connects to another, basically a flower petal that connects to the other petal. And so I'll just continue. And as long as I'm not going back up into the mix here as it's starting to dry, I won't get into any trouble. Okay? And it doesn't matter that you have perfectly straight edges here because you don't really want them anyway. This is a flower. It's going to have curvy edges. Now, the last one that I'm going to try is going to be a wet on wet. And what do we do for wet on wet is we just add color into an area that has already been moistened. So without, I don't have to go right up to the edge either. Just kind of like the middle part of it. And you don't want it to be drippy. You just want it to be shiny. That's the difference. And then I can start applying color. And I'll do different colors here, which is fun if you want a different effect. Oh, and look at how the colors behave. That yellow, which is a Nickel Azo Yellow, it really has a tendency to push colors. And the Quinacridone Magenta does not have that characteristic. So analyze your paints as you're doing them. And this is really just a wet on wet, throw colors on top, let the colors mingle the way they want. This here was interesting because it tells me that this yellow is very, it's heavier. And so it's sat down on the paper and it's starting to dry faster than the others. So I'll have to make sure, I would think that I add just maybe a little bit more water to that. Okay. And then you do whatever you want with the center. We can do that one after. But I do those little exercises often, just trying to see what it will look like. You can also do very free form. Just try your brush, put a little bit of water in your space, let the colors mingle. And now also what I'm finding out is that I might want a bit more red into this orange because I kind of like to have a brighter orange. So let's see what happens here if I take some of this red and I add more to this little puddle. All right, so my orange now takes on a different color, and I kind of like this. The colors don't have to be just pure color like that. We can do these types of effects nicely, right? All right, and now this will still be a light value. It will not come out this dark when you take a picture of it in black and white. So let's get started. I'm going to preserve the whites though of the yellow, these flowers, and I'm going to start with the medium colors. And because I want the blue to be the really dark colors in here, I'm not even going to think about blue right now. All I want to do is the oranges. So let's start. I kind of like this effect here. So let's start with this one. There's a little bit of pigment on here, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Now I'm going to start right away adding colors here. I want this to be orange, so I need to make sure that There's a lot of water on my brush, and I'm just going around and just basically playing with the drips. I'm not going back. I'll go back. Just keep moving around, but mixing your colors together. This is more like it's going to be a different effect than just a flat color. And that's what people really like about the wet on wet, because it gives you that beautiful feeling of movement. But here, I can still do that because I'm painting the entire flower. So I'm letting the colors merge together. And I'm using two colors, the red orange here, but I'm picking up a little bit of that yellow. And again, this is a complementary color scheme, so you would think I'm going to have a little bit more orange, but it's your painting, and whatever it turns out to look like, if you like it, that's it. That's all that matters. The image is not, it's not in charge of you. It's just guiding you for some ideas. So here we go. I've left a lot of those little white areas just to have a little bit of sparkle on the flower. And that'll be, and I'm not going to touch anymore. You might say, oh, I should have made it. No, just leave it alone. Just forget about it. All right, I'm going to go to this one now, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'll do the same idea, same oranges, but I could also add a little bit of water first to make it even maybe lighter in certain areas. I'm starting here to wet it. There's still some pigment on my brush, and that's okay because it's going to be very wet in here. I'm going very lightly. You see, this is a very light value. It might be too light. This might be the color I want for this one, right? So let's charge that up and add a little bit more of our oranges. Now, this is still all very wet. This is like a wet on wet, even though it had a little bit of a tint to it. I'm still doing a wet on wet. And I'm adding that orange, but let's add some yellows. And I'm just dropping the yellows in. Now, I'm going to wash this down a little bit so I have some edges. Right now, I don't even see my edges. A little bit more red in here. So what I'm mixing is the yellow and the red on the paper to get different effects, and the orange and the yellow on the paper to get the different effects. The paper that I'm using is a Saunders Waterford, and it's a sheet that's been cut in a quarter sheet. Okay, so there's the top one. Now where you see these little puddles, let's pick that up. Just lifting some of the color. That's it. This one also has a little bit of puddle. Pick it up with your brush. You can pick it up with your coffee filter, or you can just dab it with your paper towel. Paper towel is not as accurate, so sometimes it goes maybe a little bit too farther than what you want. But I think that the brush, picking up with the brush or the coffee filter, to me seems to work best. I'm going to let that dry. It's really important that I let that dry before I move on to anything else that's around that shape. So I'm going to pause this video and then we'll come back when it's dry. Okay, we're back, and this is nice and dry. I use my little blower, hand portable blower. It's pretty handy. I like it a lot. And it's gotten it fairly dry, except for in here, which I don't really care about because I'm not going to be painting in here yet. I really just wanted to make sure the edges were nice and dry because I'm going to go around with some blue. And you can see from the image here is that I have blue, a dark color, an intense value, blue being that. it could be any other color. It could be a purple. And right now, again, I'm focused on a complementary color scheme, which will just basically introduce the oranges and the blues together. So my blue is called the Pthalog Blue Green shade, and it's a very vibrant color by itself. Quite, let's take a look at it. This is what it is without anything else in it. So putting that around here might be a little bit too strong, too gaudy. So what I'm going to do is mix a gray. So I had this gray that mixed with the orange really nicely, but I want to mix a gray out of my three colors. So here's the red. That's the Quinacridone Magenta, the Pthalog Blue. Now I've got a purple. And remember, complementary colors will create grays. So purple and yellow will give me a grayer color. So it's coming. A little bit of red, a little bit more blue, till I see that kind of grayish black coming through, which is kind of a nice. So what I'm getting at is that I'm not just going to use the blue pure in its intensity out of the tube like this. It's just a little too much. So I'm going to instead take my blue and add a little bit of gray to it. So let's give that a try. So there's some blue here, and I've mixed it with some of the grays. Now I can check it. Here's what the blue looked like before. You see, this is more of a almost like an indigo, a little bit darker indigo-ish type color. So do I have enough pigment here to do everything I want to do? I don't know. I might have to make another batch for this one. It's a little tight. So it's best to make sure that you have enough. I'm going to put more water. I'll take a little bit more gray, violet. There we go, and then a little bit of yellow. Okay, and then I'll use a bit more of my pigment in here. This is pure pigment, my pure blue pigment. So I had a lot of gray on my brush. Let's take a look and see what that looks like now. That's not too bad. It's really subdued. It's toned down quite a bit. If you want to see what it looked like before, there's the pure color, right? Okay. We'll put just a bit more. Now I have a lot of good liquid here that I feel confident it's going to take me through at least this section. The next section I don't care about too much because I can mix some more. But right now I want to go from wherever it starts at the top, and I'll just follow the edges of my flower. Now you can leave some whites, and remember it doesn't have to be too accurate. I mean, you're looking for some accuracy, but if you touch your flower, it won't matter because you're actually covering it up. You're covering the color up with a darker color, so it's not going to, and it's dry, so it's not going to make any runs or any cauliflowers, like we call them. Okay, so I'm just going to go around the shape, and I see that it continues here, but there's a little bit of an interesting pattern here. I'm going to pick always from my well because that's my liquid pigment, and it's also the pigment that I have mixed for this section. Now over here, this flower is going to be a white flower. So I'm looking at this spot on my picture, and it's nice to have this flower shape in contrast because it's a white. It will be in contrast with, I'm just going to go up to here. Contrast with the blue. Big contrast. All right, so all the way down. Now I'm looking at, there's a little line here that I didn't have on the picture. That doesn't matter. I'm just working my way through. And there's the bead here that's forming at the bottom. Let's keep going. Intricate little details here, but again, starting wherever section you're in, start at the top and then fill in the space. I'm using a squirrel brush right now. It's very soft. It holds a lot of water. You can still go up here into the edges because it was still wet. Still wet, as long as it's still wet. And now I'm pretty much home free here, so I can put a lot of color on the edges here. Now I've got my big bead coming through. Starting to get a little dry here. And just basically making my way all the way down. Bead, good beading here. Ooh, that was a lucky shot. There. Now these little brushes, they do that. They flicker if you work fast, like I tend to do a lot. I move my brush and I spray things around a little bit, but it doesn't matter. Don't worry about that for now at all. And all the way here. Now it stops right around here, and I'm going to stop it around the tip, that little tip, just because it's going to look nicer if I do that. Okay, I need to lift. I need to grab my coffee filter. Lift a little bit of that paint out because it's blobbing down here too much. Make sure that I don't get a puddle. All right, and then I can come back up here and do that later. There we go. So there's my blue, and on this side I'm going to have it's kind of a lighter blue. So what I think I'd like to do here, instead of this very deep blue, I'm going to use a little bit more pure pigment for that one. So there's the very pure blue, and I'm going to water it down a lot though. Just want to see if I can get something like this, and maybe just a little bit of that gray in it, but let's water that down quite a bit. And we'll take a look at what it looks like. Now for this one, I'll start over here. I'll do the curve here, and down we go. Still wet. Keep your little bead going. There you go. Now, this is a larger shape than I had planned for. So what happens here is that I don't have the same mix now. And what's going to happen if I start mixing color at this point in the painting? Let's just see what we can do. Well, two things we could do. I could stretch, I'm actually going to make it, but what I could have done at this point is just add more water. Let's do it anyway. And now I've got a lighter color down here. which is okay. So when you start running out of paint, don't go into your fresh paint. Just add a little bit more water to stretch it out a little farther, and then you have enough to finish off that section. Okay, so this at the bottom here and this here is all going to be like a gray flowers. And this is going to require more pigment. It's not going to stay that way. It'll have to go even darker than that. This is very, very dark. So in order for me to continue this, once again, I will have to dry this. So we'll come back. Okay, let's keep going. So for the white flowers, they're going to be just a version of this orange, but just much, much lighter. And I just did just a little test here to see what that orange could look like. And if I do this, even that's too much, let's just throw in a lot of water in here. Okay, now let's see. So it's very, very light. I want it to be light. And what I want to do is try to make this flower a white flower. So I'm going to paint basically the values that I see here, because I can also strengthen these later, add more orange to make them brighter if I want to. So this one, I'm painting around the white. And then there's a little bit of a line here that comes down to the bud center of the flower. So you're just going around and looking for those little areas of gray. And I could have used a grayed down version of this. I could, and I might still put a little bit of gray on top of that afterwards. But I may reserve that gray for the spaces here in between the shapes of the petals. So let's just continue with this light. And remember that when it's light, you can always darken it. So at the beginning, if you're not if you're not 100% sure what you want that to look like, it's safe to add just a bit of color. But remember though that it's not a good idea to just have lightness like this for an entire painting. That just does not compute with our brains. Okay, and here, just a little bit underneath here. I'm just following through. This little illustration is actually kind of fun to use for the purpose of this. Now, this one has a little bit more darkness, and I don't even know if I like that dark leaf in and amongst all of that other stuff. So I don't think I'm even going to do it. I'll just make it pale. Don't want it that dark or dark as this. I could, but that's your choice, right? And then here also, I'm looking at a little bit of orange around here and around here. And it's amazing how much it doesn't take a lot of pigment to make color. But it's not popping yet. And so that's why it's going to be important to do a little bit more over here. In here, let's keep going. Now you see all the pencil lines here. If you want, you can erase some of that if it's too strong, especially where it's the white of the paper that you want to see. Go ahead and just try to remove some of that. Okay. And here I saw that this line was in a different direction, but it doesn't matter. And continuing down here. Doesn't have to be exact. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking to recreate an effect. And in this case, our goal was to use a complementary color scheme to see how that would work with this image. There we go. And that's about it here. All right. Very, very light. Again, I can strengthen that. I can come back to it and make it darker. But for now, that's probably enough. So I'm just going to let that dry because I don't really want to mess the whites up. They're a good part of the painting usually, and they attract a lot of attention. So give it 10 minutes. Continuing on with this painting, I just mixed a really strong black out of those three colors. And I'm just testing it out here to see what it would look like around my shapes. It's very, very dark. It'll be interesting, and we're going to try it. Okay, so this would be like using a Payne's gray or Jane's gray, or there's so many grays out there that you can buy. Neutral tint is kind of a little bit more purplish, but basically these are the colors. When you're buying those colors, it's to do stuff like this where you want to darken areas and you want to make sure that uh, you're getting the darks quickly, because otherwise sometimes you spend a lot of time just working on mixing, trying to get darks. Or there's another way of getting beautiful darks, and that's just by layering. But right now we're mixing. We're playing with our paints by mixing. And I'm just going through some of these areas here, and I'm painting just right over top of the blue. Um, I just really want to make a color contrast, or at this point it's a value contrast as well, right? I'm really trying to pop some of the areas of the flower shapes. And it doesn't have to be exact. It's just to give us an idea of where it's going. Now there was a little shape here. I can try to reproduce that somewhat, a little bit. And I can create my own little shapes. It's your choice. Be creative, play with it. And we're seeing now that that blue, although it looked like a very boring blue at the beginning, starts to take a little bit more life. And it's simply for the reason that we've added contrast. We're making it more vibrant. Okay, and I'm going around the petals like I did before. And as you can see, this is not exactly how it is on the image. That doesn't matter. As you can see, I made a big puddle of that gray because I wanted to make sure that I had enough to get right through. And I started down, or I'm working my way up this time, which is different from what I said earlier. But I mean, I had to start from one side or another. So at this point, I'm pretty good because I'm able to go around areas. I'm not doing a wash so much now. It's more of it's a sculpting. I'm sculpting around the shapes. And as long as the area that I'm painting like this is still wet, I'm okay. So here, there's a little gap. I could actually maybe put a little bit of that color in here and a point. Okay, maybe another little point. There's a little shape here that's interesting, and I'm going to put that in. I don't know what it's going to look like because I changed the direction. The other direction made no sense. I'm just going to make like a little V shape here. And then more blacks in here. So, I'm actually going to paint this here, all black right inside, like this, just to create a shape that's more angular. And then here, Go right to the end. Because now what I'm trying to figure out as I'm painting these is what is in front of and what is in behind. Well, I'm pretending this one is in front of, and that's why it overlaps on the other side. And now in this one, I'll continue this little shape here, just to make it look like there's a shape coming from here. And it goes down into the frame. I just did that one here to continue these sort of soft round shapes. In here, as you can see, they go right up to the center here. And some of this was marked off with pencil, but use your judgment at this point if you can't see the pencil very much. But basically, it's a line that goes all the way up to the top and gets darker here. Now, if you find that your darks are too dark, you can water them down. And let's take a look at that. It's pretty dark here. So I could do this. And to the tip. And this is still showing me some really good separation. The dark darks, which were here, don't even have to come into play on this side as well. You can put some, but not the whole thing. And then the one behind. I'm not really looking at my picture anymore because I feel like it's more of a crutch now. I'm just really looking at my painting to see what works best for my painting. And here. Because I'm really painting, what I'm doing here is creating contrast for this orange flower. All right. And I don't see that I want that intensity of darkness anywhere else in the painting. Not yet anyways. Maybe what I'd want here is to make some separation now between these shapes, but they're going to be lighter. This could also be a little darker. So all these little lines here, let's do those, but we'll do them with a brighter color. Take some of that orange and I'll mix a little bit of gray with it. I don't really want to put gray on here right now, but I do want to put a little bit of contrast in here. And the color should be harmonious with what is underneath, the color underneath. And it will be harmonious because I'm using all the same colors. Only 3 colors in this painting. 3 and then 2 that are being highlighted as the stronger ones, which is the orange and the blue. And I'm just really going through and making some line. Wherever I saw those lines, I'm just touching them up a little bit. Okay. There we go. So I'll stop here and I can still come back later. But right now, all I want to see is what is this going to look like first. Let's do it here actually as well. Starting here, same colors. Not a lot of pigment on here. Doesn't take much. So this one is not going to be quite as strong. What I'm trying to do here is just maybe put a little bit less emphasis on this one because it's going to be in the corner. So we don't want to attract too much attention to this one. Softening edges. All right. And I might go in here and put some more darkness in here as well. So what are we going to do here? Because that's not really enough, is it? Let's see if I took some very, very pale gray with some pale orange, very watered down. You can see that, very pale. Let's just try it. First of all, I'm going to go in here and put a few little spots, a couple little dots in here. And so basically I'm just creating some line. Now remember that all this will dry lighter, so we have to be careful in terms of interpreting our darks because they never stay the way that we put them down. Watercolor is very finicky for that. It just simply dries lighter, and some colors dry lighter than others. But before I make an assumption about lightness and darkness, I can actually just give myself a chance to add more later by keeping it lighter, and then later on I'll touch that up. Here, I definitely see a change in value, so I'll come in here and do that. This helps to define this flower by painting around the edges like this. We're really helping to define that flower. Also in here, actually I might even go a little darker in here. Let's just add, let's just see how this looks like here. Lots of water in here. Maybe, okay, because again, I'm defining the edges of that petal. Now I can make this look like 2 petals. I could have made it look like 1, your choice. And I'm going to go all the way down here to these blues. Basically getting rid of the white in this area because the white is really going to be saved for the flower. Now, that might have been a little damp there, but I'm trying not to touch that flower. Okay, so let's just stop about here. And in here, again, defining the edges. Defining edges, all these little nicks that form the shape of the petals. We can paint inside that. This is really negative painting at this point. It's very important in watercolor. We do that a lot. All right. And then one more in here. I haven't picked up any paint with this brush at all, and look at it's still delivering. So pretty cool. There. I have hardly any paint on my brush right now, and I'm just covering an area that, all right. Let's do a little bit more in here. Okay, and we also have to do the buds. Highlighting these little dots in here. The buds, hi. All I think I want, because they're very pale, but they should have some color. For these guys, they can definitely be more like the orangey color. And probably strong at the bottom and strong at the top. This is just dry brush now. Okay, and this one the same thing, but I'm leaving some white. Leave a little bit of white in there. The same thing over here. Lots of white. And at the top, some stronger color. I'm going with the dark that I have here. And this is going to dry lighter, and I'm sure I will want to go back in there and add a little bit more darkness. Same thing here. Trying to really just do little dots, dabs. This one here, maybe softening it up a little bit. Same idea over here, a little bit of grays. Dry brush. And you can get as intense as you want here, but you can't go overboard because the painting is very soft. So if we go very, very, very dark, it's going to look out of place. Okay. And then later on, I could even add a few little lines over there. So let's stop here and analyze and decide if there's something else that we need to do to make this pop a little bit more. One thing I notice already is this little shape here is not, to me, is not being defined enough. So I'm going to paint inside here. I'm going to go over this shape just so it all feels like it's part of the same stroke. And here, I would put a little line here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry again. There'd probably be more room, more opportunity here to add a bit more depth in this one, just a little bit at the top here. But let's just wait and see what it looks like when it's dry. All right. All right, I'm just going to finish that up with adding a little bit of, couple of little dots in here. Just basically adding a little bit at the bottom. Some darkness here for the buds. Just a touch. And that's it. I'll let that dry, and that's pretty much, I'm not going to touch anymore. Later on, I'll put it away. I'll look at it tomorrow, and if I decide I want to put some more colors in here or add a little touch of something somewhere, sure. But no, not today for sure, and probably not tomorrow either, because at the end of the day, this is your painting, this is what you did, and if you think you could do something different, it's much better to just start another one. Really, trust me. All right, so happy painting. See you at the next class.